Hi everyone, in this video we are going to learn that how we can use PSQL queries to do different functions in our Odoo. So I am going to perform create, retrieve, update and delete. As we know, all of the CRUD operations in Odoo using a module and Python code. So we are going to update, delete, create and retrieve some records in Odoo using Python code and PSQL queries. What I'm gonna do, I'm going to create a simple model or a simple table with some basic fields. Let's go on and create. It will be a simple student user table with student ID, course, age and gender fields with different selections. Let's first create the model and the form views. Let me just finish the menus and that's it. Let's go on and install our module. Great. And here, as you can see, that I have a simple model with 4 basic fields. I have student ID, gender, age and course fields. Let's create some of the records. Now this is how we basically create records in the database using Odoo front end. But what if I want to create a record using my raw SQL query? So let's jump into create method. I have a PSQL tool here, so I can just run select query on my table and I will get the record. These are the 2 records that I just created using Odoo directly. And now what we are gonna do, we are going to create the same records with some different parameters using Python. So let's jump in and write our code. So I'm going to add a method here that if we click this button, this method will be called and a new record will be created in the database. So I have named it as create student record, and now we are going to write a simple query that will be an insert query. Oops, not select, we have to type insert. Insert into our table that we know is student underscore user. So model basically is the same thing as a table that we have in SQL, and the fields we create here are basically the table columns. So we have to use these columns and have to create the record with some values in these columns. So for now I'm just adding some hard-coded values. Later on we will see that how we can pass some dynamic values to create these records in our Odoo database. I'm going to pass some hard-coded values. Firstly, student ID, as I know it's an integer. I'll pass some random integer. Then the course will be, let's say, science. Age, let's say we want to pass 20. And finally, I'm going to pass male as gender. Now this is the basic query that we write in SQL, and if we run, a new record will be generated. But in Python we can use self.n.cr. so this will basically give us our database cursor, and then we can simply use the execute method to run our query. This is how, if we execute this statement and call this method, we can create a record in Odoo. So let's go to my form view and add this method as a button so that we can click the button. Type will be object, and I'm gonna give it a class button primary, and finally we are going to give it a string which will be create. So I have given the string as create record. Now let's check. Here is our method. Let's go on and upgrade our module. We have to restart the server as we have added some Python code. Upgrade our module. Now let's go to our module. Here as we can see we have a button. Now if I click this button, a record should be created based on our hard-coded values. Now as I have clicked, let's see, and here it is. A record has been created with our provided hard-coded values. Now these are the records that are generated based on the hard-coded values, but what if I want it to create the record with some dynamic values which let's say are from the current record? So I don't want to pass the hard-coded values. Instead of the hard-coded values, I am going to give the dynamic values here. So we are going to convert our string into a formatted string that can give us dynamic functionality. And here now in the execute method I am going to pass parameters, but we can do it here also outside the string. But for now I am just going to pass the parameters, the tuple of parameters here in the execute method, and I am going to get it from self student ID course. Make sure you respect the sequence, otherwise we'll get the wrong values or can get error. That's it. Let's restart and refresh. Now if I click this button, whatever values are here in the self record, it should create a new record with the same values. So let's check it. I have created, and as you can see these two records have same values, so it has successfully generated a new record with the same values. So this is how we can use create method. We can of course use some advanced methods, advanced SQL queries, but that we will see on later PSQL videos. Now next thing is we are going to retrieve some of the records. Next step in the CRUD method, the CRUD technique is the retrieve. So we are going to retrieve some of the records using the PSQL queries in our Odoo. As we know that we have a functionality here, group by gender, group by course or something. So what if I want to retrieve data based on, let's say, course or based on age? Let's move on to our next section, which is retrieve. So I'm going to create a new method and let's name it as retrieve student record. In this method I will use a basic PSQL query to get the records based on a simple where condition. We can use some advanced conditions and joins, but that we will see in later PSQL tutorials. So I'm going to write a simple query, select static from student underscore user, which is our table name, where course equals to, and again I'm going to pass dynamic values. So I have two conditions basically, course and gender, and I have not specified the values. So what this query will do, it will return the ID of the record that will match my condition. Let's copy and pass the required parameters that are course and gender only. And we can of course limit it to 1. Now in this scenario we just don't want to execute the query, we want to get the result into an object that we can use later on. For this we have different techniques. One of them is self.n.cr.fetch all, that will just give us the list of tuples. of the result, and the other one is dict factual, which will convert the result into dictionary. So for now I'm just going to get the result by fetch all method, and I'm going to print it. Let's see what we get. Let's add this button in the front end and let's test our query. Okay, now let's go on and upgrade our module so that we can test the retrieve functionality. Okay, let's go to our records. Let's click the button, and let's see what we are going to get here is that there is an error. What is the error? Age. Oh, okay, so this is what I was telling you. You have to be sure about the arguments. We have to pass the correct arguments because the types are not same always. So here it is, we got the ID of the record, which is 1. So the record at ID number 1 has the same course and the same gender. Now let's return it in the form of dictionary. Click the button again, and as you can see that the same thing is converted into dictionary, and I think this is more useful. Now let's see that I don't want just the ID, I want the age and student ID also from that record. And let's test it again, and here it is, we got the student ID and age. Now these things I can use for different features to be implemented in our modules, and it will be more faster, but we have to be sure about the access rights. Now let's move on to the update feature. I'm going to create another method here, update student record, and we are going to write again a simple PSQL query to update the value of a column or more than one columns in a record. You see how you can summarize this into a very effective module, and how we can use all of these features collectively to perform different features, like we are going to get some information from sales module and that we are going to update in the invoicing module. These collective queries can help you, but of course we need some more advanced knowledge about PSQL queries that we will get in the later videos. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to update student user table, and I'm going to change the course to a dynamic value, or simply science. Here we can hard code where age is greater than 14. So all of the records whose age is greater than 14, I'm going to update the course to science. And again, in this query we are just simply going to execute the query. Now we need to add this method in the front end, and let's test it. Let's restart our server. Let's upgrade our module. Let's go to our module and let's test it. So we have these two records where the age is more than 14, and we are going to convert the course, we are going to update the course to science. Let's just click the button, Let's see here, and as you can see, the course has been updated to science. This is how you can use the update feature. Now let's move on to the last feature of this video, which will be delete. That is the last feature in CRUD functionality also. We are just going to delete a record using PSQL query. I'm going to write a basic query which is delete from the table name. Now we are going to add a where condition because we don't want to delete all of the data in this table, of course. And I'm going to use the same condition. So we are going to delete those two records who have the age more than 14. So I'm going to simply execute this query. Let's add this method in the XML and let's update our record. I'm gonna name it delete record. Let's restart our server, upgrade our module, and let's get it tested. All right, let's move to our module. So we have these two records that we want to delete, and I'm going to click it, and as you can see, those two records are deleted. So this is how you can perform CRUD functionality to carry out different functions in our module. This was a very basic example, but in our later videos we will see how we can combine complex queries to perform different features in Odoo. So please stay tuned for the next video and do like and subscribe.